feel like the imprint it has made, it feels like it'll carry on for a lifetime and it'll benefit me forever. I feel like I got rid of so much that I had been holding. It's benefited every aspect of my life.
Welcome to Still In It, 5-MeO DMT Stories. I'm your host, Arthur. Whether you're curious, preparing for your own journey, or reflecting on past experiences, we hope these stories resonate, inform, and inspire. Please enjoy today's episode.
This podcast is brought to you by Enfold, offering the world's most comprehensive 5-MeO DMT program. To learn more, visit enfold.org. That's enfold.org, or click on the link in the show notes.
Well, Alanna, thanks so much for joining me. Glad we could have this chat today about your 5-MeO experience. How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm doing really well. Yeah. Excited to chat about all this.
We're recording this in early March 2025. You were here at Enfold in early December 2024, so it's been a few months. Yeah, do you recall what initially piqued your interest around 5-MeO? You have a bit of a different perspective, if I may share, as a psychedelic neuroscience researcher. Did that play into your exploration of 5 and how you ended up here at Enfold?
Yeah, I think it was a mix of my research, but also my own personal journey, because I've always been drawn to psilocybin, at least like once I started researching it and getting into the psychedelic startup world. But then it just organically came up in conversation. And I also had like a couple different opportunities come up around like taking it, but it just didn't work out the timing wise. So like first time I thought about doing it was with a woman in Portugal. And then one time I was thinking about it when I was doing a retreat in Mexico afterwards, like while I was there. And then I just had this like intuitive draw to it, but I was also interested with my own experience with psychedelics and even like understanding the mechanism. We'd talked a lot about 5-MeO a few months before the retreat in the lab, because, you know, I'm looking at like psilocybin and its mechanism in the brain, specifically involved in like learning and memory in the hippocampus region of the brain. And then I just started thinking about 5-MeO, and a study came out about how 5-MeO does, but the study showed that 5-MeO did induce neurogenesis, so like new progenitor cells in the brain. So yeah, it just kind of naturally came up. And I was also in my own journey really ready to undergo another type of journey, but I was also told like it wasn't psilocybin. I was thinking about it. I was like, am I ready to do another? Because I do usually like once a year. Like, am I ready to do another one? And I felt the call to do another journey for a different reason, but it wasn't for psilocybin. Like my intuition was just telling me it was something else. And then when I heard about the center from a friend, and then it came up again in conversation. And yeah, the timing was just excellent.
Mm-hmm.
So
well, I'd love to hear more about how and why the timing was excellent, as you put it. But just because I've got you here with a bit of a unique perspective, without getting too much into the weeds, what could you say about the neurogenesis piece? Because that's something that, frankly, not a lot of people can speak to. So I'd love to, get your take on why that compelled you here, and what is neurogenesis for people who don't know.
Right. So adult neurogenesis is a bit of a controversial topic between neuroscientists, to be honest, because some believe that it occurs and some don't. And because when we are infants and children, our brains are developing until the age of 25. Some might say like 26, 27. Last region of the brain to develop is the prefrontal cortex, which is executive functioning. And then once you become an adult, some researchers believe that we are no longer creating new nerve cells in our brain. However, there has been in the past decade really interesting research, very compelling research that my supervisor actually at University of Victoria has been involved in, where they've shown new cells producing in the hippocampus, which is the region of the brain in charge of learning and memory. And that area is also connected to the amygdala, which is the fear response, prefrontal cortex, all part of the default mode network. So my main area of research is looking at neurogenesis from the activation of psilocybin, whether that occurs. Again, very early, still studying it and looking at the effects of psilocybin with chronic unpredictable stress. So seeing how inflammation and chronic stress play a role in brain connectivity and neuroplasticity and neurogenesis.
And so I know of at least one study, and it sounds like it may be the same study that you were referring to, that we've also seen some indication that that's also happening with doses of 5-MeO-DMT.
It's the only study that has shown neurogenesis to occur with DMT. No other psychedelic has yet been shown to do that. There's contradictory studies.
Very cool. I appreciate your neuroscience perspective on this. That's cool. Yeah.
It's only a label. There's, as a neuroscience, it's only a label.
Different ways of saying the same
different.
thing. Maybe.
Yeah, just different language. That's the other interesting piece that I've been having cool conversations about this with other researchers, is like the language piece with 5-MeO, because after having psilocybin experiences, there's so much to share because you've seen so much, you've experienced so much. However, with the 5-MeO, I still don't have the words to fully encapsulate it. I still haven't been able to share the totality of that experience. Just doesn't feel like words do justice, and that there's a language barrier from the actual feeling and experience after the full release.
Mm-hmm. Do you have a sense of why it's harder to put it into words compared to psilocybin or another high-dose psychedelic experience? Maybe this is the same issue. We're trying to put it into words again.
I just think that there was just too much that I saw that I could. It's like my mouth stops working when I try to explain it, and it's the best anecdote I can give to this is it's what we've been trying to seek our whole lives, and what we've tried for thousands and thousands of years through religion and spirituality. We've just struggled so much to explain the human experience and explain the oneness, God, and it's time and time again, it's a struggle to fully encapsulate it. That it's just far bigger than our human vessels.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. How do you put something like that into words? Yeah.
We try. Mm-hmm. The best way to do it is through art or music, or it goes further than the logical brain. It goes into the intuitive feel that is only present and can never be repeated again.
Mm-hmm. Well said. I think you've done a fairly good job of effing the ineffable, as we sometimes say. Yeah. You'd mentioned, Alanna, that the timing for you is just right when you decided to come to Enfold. What was going on in your life? And yeah, if it did, how did this support, what was going on at that time?
In short, I feel like I had been finishing a decade long of self-discovery and healing and understanding, merging a massive awakening and experience that I had in India when I did my breathwork meditation and yoga teacher training, and just understanding the depth of consciousness and merging that with my own religious background and experience, trying to make sense of it. And that whole decade had been a lot of self-realization, healing, breaking, sickness. It felt like a massive cycle had been closing. It was definitely associated to self-worth and having fear of the vastness of my own light. I was almost afraid of my own light. And I felt like it was too much. And that was something that constantly came up, is that I felt like my energy was too much. I was too intense of a human. But a limiting belief was of my worth and my capability. And it got in the way constantly of the work that I had been doing and striving to do. Everything was like an uphill battle. And I knew that I needed to clear a lot of tensions in my body. It actually wasn't until this journey that everything cleared. Sexual trauma, ancestral trauma, limiting beliefs. And yeah, it seemed to do the trick.
Yeah, on that note, of course, there are a number of experiences and things that happen here on an intensive at Enfold. But if you're open to sharing, Alanna, I'm sure people would love to hear a bit more about what that full release ceremony was like for you that you just touched on.
It felt like I had been unplugged from my body. Like in the Matrix movie, like I felt like I was unplugged and I went offline. And then when I came back online, I noticed the mind coming back before the ego came back. And when my mind was coming back online, I think you were there, or you probably remember me saying everything about 50 times over and over again. Everything, 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 everything. I just saw everything. And I felt like I found the secret to death. Like I had never experienced such an ending and a birth before. And I started feeling so sad that I figured out the secret to life, because I took away the magic and the mystery of life. And it felt like it took away this like childlike mystery of something that I had been seeking. And I still haven't fully unwrapped that, but that was a really interesting witnessing of seeing a big secret of life that I feel like some of us and many of us might not know. The other thing that my mind was so confused about, and this is connected to it, is that everything is just a paradox. And we attach to one side of the paradox or the other end of the spectrum, right? And nothing made sense. And the mind was so confused, and the ego was so angry. And it was so sad. There was a massive amount of like sadness. It wasn't light for me. It was very, very intense and heavy. And there was a ton of sadness that came through. But yeah, the way I integrated from that, though, it's full on changed my perspective of life and full on made me understand our relationships with not only ourselves, but within others, within other beings, and just the existentialism of life. It's made me feel like an untethered soul, like the book that I read during the retreat. Yeah. Of course, I fall into those patterns as a human being, but even in my meditations now, I still have the memory of coming out of that full release into that complete emptiness, and what it felt like to fully let go of my body, fully let go of the holding patterns, the tensions, like realizing how subconsciously tense we hold and live, and what we hold on to in our bodies, weight, energy, emotions. And it was the most somatic release I've ever been able to ride.
I imagine the days and weeks following, did that shift, and how did you feel afterwards in that aftercare integration period?
Yeah, the integration was difficult. It was very triggering, because a lot of what came up, the trauma that was released, it was continuing to release afterwards. So like a lot of like reactivations were coming up in my sleep. I was like pretty triggered in certain situations for a couple of weeks, but I did just like let them come, and I knew that it was like part of what was clearing. And then something flipped like a couple weeks afterwards. I don't know if some women connect to this that are listening, but the association to the womb and the throat chakra, or the throat, and the expression of your truth and being able to speak without being quieted. So that was again connected to that limiting belief of feeling like I had to hold back because what I would share would be too much or too loud or something, right? Speaking the truth and what resonated within me. That was a huge lesson of integration of speaking the truth without having fear of somebody's response and being unattached to that.
Yeah. And if I'm not mistaken, so you're also in this process of opening up the current space that you're in. How did that shift or transformation around expression assist you or impact the process that you were in the midst of co-founding and opening up this brand new space?
Huge, because one of my biggest fears was that what I would share wouldn't resonate with people, or that it was too much or too scientific or too woo, or like, watching what I say to make certain people recognize it. But one thing that I've realized is it's not necessarily what you say, it's the energy that you transmit when you're speaking it, how your body is speaking. And yes, our words are one thing, of course, but if you're speaking your truth, there is that resonance that people respond to. And when you're speaking in that true resonance, that's all you can do, right? And when I was opening this space with like working with people from Britain, like different culture, different way of communicating, like I noticed my voice got really quiet in meetings and I would overthink what I wanted to say. And I just noticed it got a lot louder and more commanding, and stepped into that voice, and it's been a huge piece of opening this up and sharing it. It's something that I've been wanting to do for 8 years. So I really wanted to open this space from that truth, from that authentic core essence of being, without any fear, without any blocks, and just trusting myself, trusting that like all the work that I've done up till now, the timing is perfect in its own way.
I would usually at this point ask, what would you say to somebody who's considering coming to Enfold for this experience? But I'm going to switch it up a little bit and ask you, what were you most surprised by from your experience?
Just at how long the effects have lasted. Truly. Like, I feel like the imprint it has made it feels like it'll carry on for a lifetime and it'll benefit me forever. Yeah, that's what it feels like. I feel like I got rid of so much that I had been holding. And yeah, it just feels like learning this secret has like, and just knowing it. I know when I came out of it, I didn't like that I found out about this life secret. That box wasn't meant to be open, but I'm really grateful that I opened it because it's benefited every aspect of my life, even down to like family relationships, personal relationships, work, self. Always able to go back to that imprint, that blueprint, and that soul, that white light.
Well, I'd say that's a really beautiful place to end things. And yeah, it's always a pleasure to connect with you and appreciate you taking the time today.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me on here. I was really excited to chat.